There are moments in life when something finds you at exactly the right time, not when you're searching for it, not when you think you need it, but when you're finally ready to receive it. What I'm about to share with you isn't just information. It's a transmission, a frequency that's been waiting for you to tune into it. And if you're hearing these words right now, it's because some part of you has already begun to vibrate at the level necessary to understand what's coming. The ancient mystics knew something that modern science is only now beginning to confirm, that everything in existence, including you, is vibration, energy in motion, frequencies dancing in patterns that create what we call reality. But here's what they didn't tell you in school, what most people never discover in their entire lifetime. You're not just experiencing these frequencies, you're broadcasting one. Every single moment of your existence, you're sending out a signal into the universe, and that signal is creating your life. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change everything you think you know about manifestation, consciousness, and why your life looks the way it does. Chapter 1. The whisper beneath the noise. Right now, beneath the sound of my voice, beneath your thoughts, beneath the hum of the world around you, there's a frequency calling your name. Most people never hear it. They're too busy, too distracted, too caught up in the chaos of everyday existence. They move through life reacting, responding, surviving, never realizing that life is trying to speak to them in a language older than words. This language doesn't come through your ears. It comes through something deeper, unknowing, that lives in your chest, in your gut, in that space between thoughts where truth lives before you name it. You've felt it before, in those strange moments when you thought of someone and they immediately called, when you had a feeling about something and it turned out to be exactly right, when you walked into a place you'd never been, but somehow felt like you'd been there before, when a stranger looked at you and you felt seen in a way that defied explanation. These aren't coincidences. They're not random. They're proof that you're connected to something vast and intelligent, something that's been trying to get your attention your entire life. The divine frequency is that connection. It's the invisible thread that links your consciousness to the consciousness of everything. And when you learn to feel it, to tune into it, to align with it, reality itself begins to reorganize around you. But here's what nobody tells you. You can't force this connection. You can't think your way into it. You can't follow a perfect 10-step system and arrive at enlightenment, because the divine frequency isn't something you attain. It's something you remember. You were born knowing this language. As a child, before the world taught you to doubt your own magic, you understood it perfectly. You lived in wonder. You saw miracles in ordinary things. You felt the aliveness of existence without needing proof. Then life happened. You were taught to be logical, practical, realistic. You learned to ignore your intuition in favor of what made sense. You stopped trusting the whispers and started only listening to the shouts. And slowly, that connection to your frequency faded into the background like a song playing in another room. But it never left. It's been waiting, patient, persistent, calling you back through every disappointment, every crisis, every moment when life cracked you open. Because pain isn't punishment. It's recalibration. Every time something in your life falls apart, the universe is asking you the same question. Are you ready to remember who you really are? Chapter 2. The Truth They Never Taught You. Let me tell you something that will sound impossible until you experience it for yourself. Your thoughts don't create your reality. Everyone talks about positive thinking, about affirmations, about visualizing what you want. And they're missing the deepest truth. Thoughts are surface level. They're the ripples on the water, not the current underneath. What creates your reality is your frequency, the energetic signature you're broadcasting in every moment. And that frequency is determined not by what you think, but by what you feel, what you believe at a level deeper than thought, what your nervous system has been conditioned to expect. You can say affirmations all day long. You can visualize your dream life until your eyes hurt. But if your frequency is tuned to lack, to unworthiness, to fear, then that's what the universe will reflect back to you. Not because it's against you, because it's responding to you. Life is a mirror, and it shows you exactly what you're vibrating. This is why some people seem to manifest everything effortlessly, while others struggle despite doing all the right things. It's not about who's more spiritual or who knows the secret formula. It's about frequency. It's about what signal you're actually broadcasting when nobody's watching, when you're alone with yourself, when the mask comes off. Ancient traditions understood this. They didn't talk about the law of attraction. They talked about resonance. They talked about being in harmony with the Tao, with the Dharma, with the divine flow. They knew that when your inner frequency aligned with the frequency of creation, everything you needed would flow to you naturally. Modern science is catching up. Quantum physics shows us that at the most fundamental level, matter isn't solid. It's vibrating energy. Particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observation collapses them into one reality, which means consciousness, your consciousness, plays a role in determining which reality manifests. You're not just living in the universe, you're participating in its creation. Every moment, your frequency is collapsing infinite possibilities into the specific experience you're having right now. But most people are unconscious creators. They're broadcasting frequencies they absorbed from childhood, from trauma, from society. They're tuned to channels they didn't choose. And then they wonder why life feels like it's happening to them instead of for them. The awakening happens when you realize you can change the channel, when you understand that you're not stuck with the frequency you've been carrying. You can tune to a different station. You can choose what signal you broadcast. And when you do, reality responds. Chapter 3. The Language of Synchronicity. Once you begin to consciously work with your frequency, life starts speaking to you in a new language, the language of synchronicity. Suddenly, you're in the right place at the right time. The book you needed falls off the shelf in front of you. The person who has the answer you've been seeking sits next to you on the train. The opportunity you've been dreaming about lands in your inbox from nowhere. People call this luck. They call it coincidence. They call it being blessed. But it's none of those things. It's alignment. It's your frequency matching up with the frequency of what you need. And when that happens, the universe bends to bring you together. This is how life has always worked. But most people miss it because they're not paying attention. They're so busy forcing, pushing, making things happen through sheer effort that they miss the flow trying to carry them. There's a difference between action and force. Action flows from alignment. It feels natural, even when it's challenging. There's an ease to it, a sense of rightness. Force comes from fear, from the belief that if you don't make it happen, nothing will. And force always creates resistance. When you're in your frequency, you know which actions to take and which to let go. You know when to move and when to wait. You know when something is for you and when it's time to release it. This isn't about being passive. It's about being responsive to the intelligence that's guiding you. The signs are always there, a feeling in your body that says yes or no, a dream that shows you something you need to see, a conversation that happens to contain exactly the message you needed to hear, a name that keeps appearing in different contexts. These are not random. They're the universe communicating with you in the only way it can. But you have to be listening. You have to slow down enough to feel the subtle pulls, the quiet nudges, the gentle redirections. You have to trust what you sense, even when it doesn't make logical sense. This is where most people get stuck. They want proof before they trust. They want guarantees before they move. But the divine frequency doesn't work that way. It requires you to move first, to trust first, to align first. And then reality confirms your trust by showing up in ways that seem miraculous. The more you practice listening, the clearer the messages become. The more you trust the synchronicities, the more they multiply. Life becomes a constant conversation between you and the intelligence that created you. And you realize you were never alone. You were never figuring this out by yourself. You were always being guided. Chapter 4. The Frequency of Transformation. Here's what happens when you start consciously raising your frequency. Everything in your life that's not aligned with your truth begins to fall away. Relationships that once felt comfortable suddenly feel suffocating. Jobs that once seemed secure suddenly feel like prisons. Habits that once numbed you suddenly stop working. And this is terrifying for most people, because they interpret the falling away as loss, as failure, as something going wrong. But it's not. It's the universe clearing space. It's life removing what no longer matches who you're becoming. And it's one of the most compassionate things that can happen to you. You can't hold a new frequency and keep an old life. They're incompatible. The moment you begin to vibrate at a higher level, anything vibrating lower has to either rise up to meet you or fall away. This includes people, places, identities, beliefs, everything. And this is where the real work begins, because letting go is not easy. Even when you know something isn't right for you anymore, there's a part of you that wants to hold on, that's afraid of the unknown, that would rather stay in familiar discomfort than step into uncertain transformation. But transformation requires death, not physical death, the death of who you used to be, the death of the version of you that settled, that played small, that believed you were limited. That version has to die for the true you to emerge. Ancient mystery schools understood this. They had initiations, rituals of death and rebirth. They knew that to step into your power, you first had to release your attachment to powerlessness. To embody your divinity, you first had to let go of your identification with limitation. This is happening to you right now. Every time life asks you to let go of something, it's inviting you to die and be reborn at a higher frequency. Every ending is actually a beginning. Every loss is actually a liberation. Every moment of grief is your old self being released so your true self can breathe. And yes, it hurts. It's supposed to. Growth always involves some degree of discomfort. But there's a difference between the pain of transformation and the pain of staying stuck. One leads somewhere, the other just repeats itself endlessly. When you understand this, when you really get that life is not punishing you but upgrading you, something shifts. You stop resisting the changes. You stop clinging to what's leaving. You start trusting the process. You start surrendering to the frequency that's trying to move through you. And that's when the real magic happens. When you stop fighting what is and start flowing with what's becoming. When you let yourself be transformed by the very thing you've been resisting. Chapter 5. Becoming the frequency. So how do you actually live this? How do you become conscious conductor of your frequency instead of an unconscious receiver of whatever's broadcasting around you? It starts with awareness, with noticing, with paying attention to your internal state in every moment. How do you feel right now? Not what you think about how you feel, not the story you tell yourself about why you feel it, but the actual sensation in your body, the actual frequency you're emitting. Your body never lies. It's your most accurate feedback system. When something is aligned with your truth, you feel expansive, open, light, energized. When something is not aligned, you feel contracted, heavy, drained, tense. Most people override these signals constantly. They force themselves into situations that drain them because they think they should. They stay in conversations that deplete them because they don't want to be rude. They ignore their intuition because it doesn't match what everyone else is doing. But every time you override your frequency, you send yourself a message. You tell yourself that your truth doesn't matter, that external validation is more important than internal alignment. And your frequency responds by dimming, by lowering, by matching the energy of compromise and self-abandonment. The practice is simple but not easy. Honor your frequency. When something feels wrong, trust that. When something feels right, move toward it. When your body says no, say no. When your heart says yes, say yes. Even when it makes no sense. Even when people don't understand. Even when it's inconvenient. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being true. Because when you're in your frequency, you have something real to give. You're not operating from depletion trying to prove your worth. You're overflowing from alignment, and that overflow naturally serves others. Create practices that help you tune in silence, stillness, solitude. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. In the quiet, you can hear the frequency beneath the noise. You can feel what's yours and what you've absorbed from the world. You can recalibrate, protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Limit exposure to frequencies that drag you down. The news that feeds fear, the people who only feel good when you feel bad, the environments that demand you shrink to fit in. You don't owe anyone your depletion. And here's the secret that changes everything. Your frequency is contagious. When you hold a clear, high vibration, you give others permission to do the same. You become a tuning fork. People in your presence start to match your energy. Situations shift to accommodate your frequency. Reality literally reorganizes itself around the signal you're broadcasting. You don't have to announce this. You don't have to explain it. You don't even have to talk about spirituality or consciousness or any of this. You just have to be it. You just have to live from your frequency so consistently that it becomes undeniable. And people will notice. They'll say, "You've changed." They'll ask what you're doing differently. They'll feel something when they're around you that they can't name but recognize as true. That's not you being special. That's you being real. That's you broadcasting your authentic frequency instead of a borrowed one. This is your invitation, not to become something you're not, but to remember what you've always been, a conscious creator, a vibrational being, a frequency that chose to take human form to experience itself in new ways. The divine frequency isn't out there. It's not something you find. It's not a destination you reach. It's what you are when you stop pretending to be anything else. So stop pretending, stop performing, stop trying to fit into a frequency that was never yours. Tune into the signal that's been broadcasting from your soul since before you had language to name it. Feel it humming beneath everything, and let it guide you home to yourself, because that's all awakening ever was, coming home to the frequency you never actually left, remembering the song you've been singing all along. The universe is listening. It's been listening this entire time, waiting for you to remember that you're not just hearing the music. You are the music. Now, broadcast that truth with everything you are, and watch as reality reflects it back to you in ways that prove you are never separate from the divine. You were always the frequency itself, experiencing itself, creating itself, loving itself into form. Welcome home.